What is going on, everybody? Shwazy here, and in today's video I'm reviewing a vehicle that you usually never see on the channel, and that is a 2024 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid. Okay, so admittedly, I am not a big minivan guy. I prefer sports cars or muscle cars or off-roaders. Minivan and Shwazy don't really go hand in hand. That being said, I love reviewing minivans because they always come packed with some of the coolest features, and this 2024 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid is no exception to that. Now, give you a little bit of background on this vehicle. So the Pacifica nameplate was actually previously used on a crossover from 2004 to 2008, and then Chrysler brought this back in 2017 as a replacement to the Town and Country minivan. So this one kind of ran hand in hand with the Town and Country and eventually replaced it. And in 2021, they actually facelifted this vehicle. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is the latest version of the Pacifica, and this is actually Chrysler's last standing vehicle. So this may be the only reason that Chrysler as a brand continues to exist, because the 300 was discontinued. You may still be able to find some on dealership lots, but as of the end of 2024, this will be the last remaining Chrysler vehicle. Now, this one in particular is the plug-in hybrid version. It's an interesting powertrain. In fact, this is the only plug-in hybrid minivan you can buy. And in today's video, we'll do an exterior-interior walk-around, show you some of the features, and then we'll take this vehicle on the road and see how it drives. All right, let's kick things off with the exterior styling. Starting off with the front end, you do get LED headlights and daytime running lights as standard, and you've got fog lights located down here in the front fascia. Now, this particular vehicle comes with the custom preferred package, which includes the S package, and that is what actually blacks out a lot of these trim pieces on the vehicle. So you'll see the Chrysler logo is actually blacked out. You have a gloss black grille. Your front fascia has a lot of gloss black. And then this particular vehicle is equipped with the silver mist clear coat. So that silver color looks pretty good, and I think it matches with the black exterior accents. Now, coming across the side of the vehicle, this particular car comes with these optional 18-inch wheels. They have blacked out aluminum, again part of that S package, which is part of the custom preferred package. It does get a little bit confusing with the package setup that they have on this vehicle, but you're looking at 235/60 all-season tires, and of course you have independent front and rear suspension. Now, coming across the side of the vehicle, you'll notice you have blacked out trim pieces, so your mirror caps and your window surround, that's all blacked out, and again part of this custom preferred package. These are also power operated, so they will fold in when you lock the vehicle. We'll talk about this fuel cap here in just a minute, but this has to do with your plug-in hybrid capabilities. Now, moving further back, you do have power operated doors as standard on every single Pacifica, and you can control it using the key fob itself. So you can push the buttons over here and it will open either the left or the right hand side. Now, I do want to mention this particular one does come with this roof rack. It's blacked out as well, so you can add some accessories if you're taking this vehicle on some longer road trips. Moving across the rear end, I do like that body line that extends across the front all the way to the back, and in general the design of this thing is pretty streamlined, kind of very swoopy. It does kind of look like the Grand Caravan of back in the 2000s. It's a kind of an evolution of that design. And then the rear end is pretty good as well. I like how this rear windshield wraps around this little quarter panel, and then it kind of turns into the rear taillights, which are LEDs as well. And it's a daytime running light that extends all the way across the driver to passenger side. It's almost like a racetrack light. It's kind of interesting for a minivan. But when this vehicle came out back in 2017, it was a pretty attractive looking minivan when compared to other minivans. And in terms of design in general, this is a little bit more standard looking than something that's kind of out there like the Toyota Sienna, which definitely looks different than any other vehicle on the road. Down here you have your hybrid badging, and then the Pacifica with the S badging there as well. And then you have a rear fascia that's blacked out with some parking sensors as well. All right, now let's touch on some of the specifications of the Pacifica. So in terms of length, this vehicle is 204.3 inches long, which is just a few inches longer than your typical 3-row midsize crossover. In terms of weight, since this vehicle has that hybrid powertrain with the battery inside, this thing weighs a hefty 5,000 pounds. Now, for 2024, Chrysler offers 2 trim levels of this Pacifica, although when you start actually using the builder on their website, it comes out to almost 5 trims. You have the Hybrid Select, then there's this one, which is the Hybrid Select S Appearance Package. You've also got the Road Tripper, then there's the Premium S Appearance, and then the top of the line trim level is the Pinnacle trim. We'll talk pricing later on in this video. Next, let's talk about one of the coolest features of this vehicle, and that is the powertrain. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the only plug-in hybrid minivan you can buy. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, a plug-in hybrid essentially allows you to go a certain distance on all-electric range, and then when you run out of that battery, this vehicle can continue to move forward by activating its gas engine. In this setup, you have a 16 kilowatt hour battery, which is pretty small when you compare it to something like the Tesla Model 3, which has an 82 kilowatt hour battery. And that means in this particular vehicle, you can go only up to 32 miles on all electric range, which I actually did yesterday. I drove around town and did some errands without using a drop of gasoline. Now, once that battery is depleted, that's when this 3.6 liter Pentastar V6 kicks on, and that's how this vehicle will continue driving. Chrysler says between the electric and the gas engine, you can get upwards of 520 miles on a single fill-up. That is pretty impressive. That's a long distance to road trip without ever having to stop at a gas station. Now, in terms of how this sends power to the vehicle and the front wheels, that's where it gets kind of complicated. You've actually got two electric motors. So the gas engine is hooked up directly to one motor that will power the wheels, and the second motor actually powers your recharge of your battery, the accessory units, the driver assistance features. So it gets a little bit murky in how this thing sends power to the front wheels, and I'm not sure in terms of a reliability standpoint how that's going to stand the test of time. But nonetheless, the power output on this thing is pretty decent. It only produces 260 horsepower from the gas engine alone, which is oddly enough a little bit less than the same exact gas engine in the non-hybrid version, and you only get 230 pound-feet of torque, but you have to sit behind the wheel of this vehicle to really appreciate how quick this thing is. This does not feel underpowered. You can easily pass people on the freeway, and 0 to 60 is pretty average. You're looking at 7.5 to 8 seconds or so. Also, in terms of the fuel economy, this thing gets about 30 mpg just on the gas engine. You have 82 mpg equivalent when you combine the two, and the instrument gauge cluster has been telling me that I've been getting about 37.1 mpg combined driving around using both the gas and the electric motors. Now, I should mention that front-wheel drive is the only configuration you can get on the plug-in hybrid. If you do want all-wheel drive, Chrysler offers it on the Pacifica. It's just on the non-hybrid versions. Now, in terms of charging here, Chrysler includes a charging cable with every purchase of the Pacifica, and it has a little slot in the trunk where you can hide it so that you can always have it on you. When you plug this into a typical 110 volt household power outlet, this thing will take about 12 hours to charge. However, if you plug this into a 240 volt level 2 charger, this thing has a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger, which means this can go from 0 to 100% in just about 2 hours. And there's also a little indicator on the dashboard, so you don't actually have to get into the vehicle to see how much charge is being put back in the vehicle. That's a pretty cool feature. Now, in terms of towing, the standard Chrysler Pacifica can get upwards of 3,600 pounds, which is pretty impressive. However, Chrysler doesn't recommend towing with the hybrid version. So if you need to tow some toys, I recommend the non-hybrid version, but if you need the best fuel economy, this one's the one to go for. Now, next up, let's jump inside and talk about the interior, and there's a lot to talk about. But before I do, I want to show you the Chrysler key one more time. You have your unlock and lock at the top. You've got your power liftgate, your remote start. You also have the buttons to open up your doors and your panic button at the bottom. And it's a pretty nice key. It's got some nice weight to it, and you've got your Chrysler logo located at the back. Now, jumping inside of the Chrysler Pacifica, starting off with the door panel, this does have soft touch material all throughout the top, although this is kind of this injection molded rubberized plastic material that I've seen on other Mopar products, and it's starting to look a little bit aged, a little bit less premium, but at least it is soft touch and you can rest your elbow here without problem. You do have some aluminum accents over here and an aluminum door handle. Memory seats are also included on this one, and then this one has the black Napa leather interior, so this is all leather touch surfaces. You've got this white contrast stitching, your typical Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge window switches, and your mirror controls as well. And then this kind of has a two-tier storage compartment, so you have this upper tier where you can put maybe some Twinkies or something like that, and your fuel cap release button over there as well. And then down here is a much larger compartment with a water bottle slot. Now, this particular vehicle I'm driving today comes with the upgraded Uconnect Theater sound group, which includes this 760 watt amplifier and a 20 speaker audio system inside of the vehicle. It's pretty impressive for a minivan to have 20 speakers located all throughout the interior, and it sounds really good. Now, like I mentioned, this one has the optional Napa leather seats, so this is full grain leather. You got some white piping with some white stitching. It looks really nice. And this one being the S appearance package, you have this S embroidered into the leather seats as well. Now, these are heated, and since this one has the custom preferred package, these are also ventilated seats, and they work pretty well. It's been kind of hot the last few days, and the ventilated seats work quite nice to cool you off so you're not sticking to the chair. Now, this one also has the 8-way power adjustable seats with 4-way lumbar support. One more neat feature down here is on the passenger and driver's side, you've got this little compartment here for an umbrella. So if you have a wet umbrella, rather than putting it on the floor mats, you can stick it in here, and it kind of has this little crevice over here to collect some of the water. And let's jump inside and talk about what's going on in here. So starting off with the steering wheel, this is leather wrapped and it's quite thick. I mean, you've got like a sports car steering wheel located inside of this thing. This is almost the same as what I have on my Dodge Challenger. It's kind of crazy. It also has pretty much the same type of controls. So first off, you do have a heated steering wheel here, which is nice for cold climates. You got your cruise control settings here and your adaptive cruise control down here. This is kind of a rubberized material, a little bit on the harder side. You got your Chrysler logo in the middle. And then on the left-hand side is how you're going to control your gauge cluster display, which I'll show off in just a moment. You got your voice activation controls and your phone controls there. Now, in typical Mopar fashion, you've got buttons located on the back of the steering wheel. This one is to control your volume, and then on the left-hand side is how you're going to control your seek and track settings. So it's nice to do that because your fingers are always placed in that position. Makes it really easy to change stations. Now, on the right-hand side of the steering wheel, you do have your windshield wiper stock, and you've got rain-sensitive windshield wipers on this particular vehicle. And on the left-hand side is your turn signal indicator and your automatic high beam controls. If you want to control your headlights in general, you've got this little rotating knob located underneath the air vents. And then I will mention that this vehicle does come with a tilt and telescopic steering wheel, but it is manually adjustable. Now, I want to talk about the interior use of materials here. So first off, you've got kind of a fake aluminum bezel located around this air vent, and then this is all that same rubberized soft touch material you find on the door panel. So it's this injection molded plastic, and even though it's not hard touch material, which is a nice improvement over some of the previous gen vehicles, it's still not as premium as some of the other competitors. So you have this fake stitching that extends all the way to the passenger side, but you can kind of tell it's not the most premium material on the interior. So some things are really nice, like this leather wrapped steering wheel, and other things I think could be a little bit improved. Now, let's talk about the gauge cluster display. So turning this vehicle on with a push to start, this comes with the 7-inch instrument gauge cluster display, and it's a TFT display, and it's pretty nice. It's got the same software you find on a lot of Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge products. You can use the buttons on the steering wheel to cycle through vehicle info, your music settings. You can look at the hybrid setup so you can see exactly how much power is being sent to the wheels, and it's some basic stuff, but it's a pretty nice screen. I don't think you really need an all digital display, but some of the competitors do offer that. On the left hand side, you'll see exactly how much power is being used and how much is being sent back into the battery using the regenerative braking. On the right hand side is your fuel gauge indicator. Now, jumping towards this screen over here, this is a 10.1 inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and this runs the latest software, the Uconnect 5 system. You got your quick access buttons located down here at the bottom, and it's pretty easy to use. It's not the most responsive, but it's fairly responsive overall. You know, here I am pushing the buttons and it's pulling this stuff up. Now you can go into your vehicle menu, and this is where you can see exactly how much power is being sent into the battery or how much of the engine is being used to power the vehicle. You can also go through different controls here. So turning this vehicle on, you can hit the surround view camera, and that's where you open up your 360 cam. Lots of different angles here. It's a pretty decent quality camera. There's nothing super advanced here, but it's just about average compared to some of the competition. I am glad that they've included that, but that is an optional feature. It doesn't come on every single vehicle. You also have this optional fam cam, which is pretty cool. I haven't seen this on every single minivan, but this shows you a heads-up view of what's going on in the second and third row, and you can click on different seats to see exactly what's going on. So if you want to zoom in specifically on the rear seat, you can tap it. You can tap on the middle seat. So it's pretty cool. I like that feature, and it's very helpful for families to be able to see. So like if you have a car seat over here, instead of having your typical mirror that's strapped to the headrest, you can simply use this fam cam and see exactly what your baby is doing in the back seat. I think it's a very innovative feature that a lot of minivans are starting to integrate in different ways. Another neat feature I want to point out is this panel that you can swipe down to open up your quick access buttons. So your 360 camera, your fam cam, and then there's something called passenger voice, where when you select it, the third row can talk to you and you'll be able to hear it from the front speakers. This is something that I've seen some other minivans offer, but it is a nice feature overall. That being said, this vehicle does come with acoustic glass, so you may not actually need to have this passenger talk because it's relatively quiet. It gets a little bit louder on the highways, but for the most part in day-to-day city traffic, this thing is perfectly quiet. Now, one more thing to mention about the quick access panel is you can actually reorganize these apps similar to what you would do with like your smartphone. Now, one complaint I do have is there's no physical buttons or even a quick access button down here to get to your 360 camera. So in order to do that, you have to swipe down and you have to click the surround view camera, then it will pull it up. But even if you're approaching something and your front parking sensors are going off, you would think it would automatically pull up the 360 camera, but it really doesn't. The only time it does is if you put it in reverse or if you go through this menu and click 2 buttons to get to your 360 cam. It's just a little inconvenient because when you're pulling into tight parking spots, you really don't have time to like quickly swipe down this and click this button. It would have been much nicer to have a physical button do that for you. Now moving down from this display, let's talk about what's going on here. So you do have your gear selector located down here with your rotary knob style selector. This is something that Dodge, Jeep, Ram have used in other vehicles as well. You got your electronic parking brake, and then I do like the redundancy here. So you got a physical volume knob, physical tune knob. This is your automatic parking button, so you can pull into a parking lot and then click this button and it'll automatically search for a parking spot and help you park. These are your parking sensors to turn them off, turn off your lane keep assist, your traction control. You can turn the screen off entirely, and then this is how you mute everything along with your hazards. This is your climate stack over here, so you can adjust your fan speed, your dual zone climate control, and turn on your AC, and also the positioning of where the fan is blowing. Now down here, this is where it gets a little bit more of that piano black plastic treatment, and this is part of the S appearance package, along with the illuminated lighting around the cup holders and some footwell lighting as well. So the S appearance package is expensive, but it adds some nice touches. Over here, you've got a pretty deep storage compartment. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but you could easily slide your phone or wallet in there. You've also got 2 USB ports, and then sliding this compartment open reveals a massive wireless charging slot. You could easily fit the largest phones on the market today. You've also got another storage spot over here, along with 4 USB ports and an auxiliary jack. So this thing definitely has plenty of connectivity to charge various devices. Closing this up, you've got large cup holders over here. Now moving backwards, you can slide open this rubberized cover to reveal some coin slot holders. You've also got more USB ports and a cigarette style power outlet, along with 2 remotes, which we'll talk about when we get into the second row. But overall, it's a pretty deep cubby. There's some random things you can store back here if you're going on a road trip, and then you can cover it up so it doesn't look as messy. Now I should mention, this is all this leather wrap material, so if you rest your knees over here, it's going to be a comfortable spot. And you've got more storage located down here, so you can actually store like a purse or a wallet down here, and plenty of space to put random knickknacks, which is what you need when you have a minivan. I also like with these chairs, you've got this captain's chair setup where both the driver and the passenger side have this little armrest so that they can sit comfortably when they're driving on longer road trips. Moving above you, you have your typical standard rear view mirror. There's no rear view camera mirror, unfortunately, which would be nice because this is a pretty long car. So having a digital camera mirror would have been a nice option. And up above you, you've got your controls for your lighting. You can open up the doors, open up the lift gate. You can tap this button to turn on the LED lights. You've also got a sunglass holder. And then this is kind of a cool hidden feature, so you can push this button and actually see your second and third row without obstructing your rear view mirror. So this is something I've seen on some other minivans, but it's kind of like this wide lens, wide view mirror that is very useful if you have a bunch of people on the back that are getting kind of rowdy. Now, this also comes with a large panoramic sunroof. This is an optional feature, and the nice thing here is it actually opens as well. So this is not just a fixed pane glass, and it opens up quite a bit. Now there's no third row panel roof like you find on some other 3-row vehicles, but this is a massive glass roof. I've kept it closed just because it's been pretty hot, but it is a nice added feature that makes this interior feel a little bit more luxurious. Now jumping into the second row, since this vehicle has the custom preferred package, it has the hands-free opening of the second row door. You just simply swipe your foot on the bottom and it'll automatically open. A nice added feature when your hands are full. Now talking about these seats, this is the captain's chair setup. In fact, the Chrysler Pacifica only comes with the seating for 7. You've got 3 in the back, 2 over here, and 2 in the first row. And these seats are really nice. They're also leather wrapped, perforated leather. You got some white piping and some white stitching. There's no heated or ventilated functionality or anything like that, but you've got these dual arm rests over here on the left and the right hand side. Now Chrysler typically offers the stow and go system where the second row can actually fold into the floor and give you a flat loading surface when that third row is folded down as well. However, that is not a feature on the plug-in hybrid, and that's because the hybrid powertrain and the battery is located underneath the floor here, so that is a compromise, or a sacrifice I should say, that you have when you have the plug-in hybrid. But nonetheless, even with the third row folded down, you do have plenty of space inside of the cabin. Now climbing inside, let's talk about the space back here. So closing this door, you do have a button located over here, or you can simply pull on the latch on the door handle, which is a little bit hard harder to reach, so I like pushing that button and it will automatically close the second row. Over here you do have your window switches, and then this particular vehicle comes with the second row sunshade, so it's manually activated. However, there is quite a bit of opening over here, so if you're leaning quite far back, you might want to have a second sunshade that's like manually attached via suction cup, because this might not be enough, but it still is nice that the second row offers that. This is all hard touch material, unfortunately, but kind of to be expected. You do have a cup holder slot located over here. Now, in terms of legroom, it's pretty decent. You're looking at about 39 inches, which is up there, but maybe not quite as good as some three-row crossovers. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this particular vehicle has the Uconnect Theater Group, which includes these dual displays on the back of the headrests. I'm not quite sure on the sizing here, but this is a touchscreen display, and it also has Amazon Fire Stick capability. So you've got Netflix on here, Hulu, pretty much anything you can do on a Fire Stick or a smart TV device at home. And as I showed off earlier, your remotes are located in here, but you don't necessarily need it because you can, click these buttons over here and activate those same controls. And it's a pretty intuitive screen. Honestly, it's almost snappier than the main display located over on the Uconnect system. You've also got a USB port over here, a HDMI port, and an auxiliary port to plug in some headphones, a map pocket over here, and some hooks over here so you can maybe hang off a trash bag or something like that for snacks. It's a nice added feature in the second row. And then opening up this little compartment, you've got two cup holders. Opening it up further is a large storage compartment where you could store various different items like snacks, like a trash bag or something like that, and then you can hide it at a plain sight so it's not in the way. Moving up above you, you do have a air vent control located over here right above your head, and then a hook to hang your clothing. And then on the passenger side is where you'll actually regulate the fan speed and the air temperature for the second and the third row. You've also got a little microphone over here and a speaker so that you can listen in when you use the passenger talk in the first row. Now, climbing into the third row is incredibly easy. Like most minivans, you simply pull on this tab and the entire seat slides forward, but you also have no middle seat over here since this is the captain's chair setup, so it's quite easy to climb in and down this second row into the third row as well. Now, minivans have some of the most comfortable third rows, and the Pacifica is no exception to that. It's a very comfortable third row to sit. You've got really soft touch leather over here, perforated, a pretty nice headrest that can be easily adjusted. You've also got a USB port over here, more speakers, two cup holders, a little storage compartment over here. Moving up above you, you've got an air vent over here along with some LED lights. This is your passenger camera up above you. And then this particular vehicle also has a third row sunshade. So usually the third row is kind of neglected, but here the third row sunshade almost covers more than the second row sunshade. So it's nice to keep these third row passengers comfortable. This is all hard touch plastic, which is unfortunate, but that's pretty much every single three row vehicle. And then on the driver's side, you got a smaller storage compartment here and only one cup holder, but still plenty of space. And then in terms of legroom, this seat all the way in its backmost position, you still got plenty of legroom in the third row. It's probably one of the most comfortable third rows I've ever reviewed outside of other minivans. I mean, no three-row crossover has this level of legroom and seating position as a minivan does. Even if a three-row crossover has decent legroom, this one has 36.5 inches, by the way, you're typically seated with your knees closer to your chest, so you're kind of in a hunched over position. Here, I'm sitting pretty much like I would in the second row. As you can see, there's really no angle to my lower portion of my thigh. Also, headroom is really decent because it's kind of a boxier shape on the outside. Typical adults can easily sit back here, unlike three-row crossovers, which are mostly reserved for like kids and teens in the third row. Now, jumping into the third row, this one does have the kick-operated power liftgate, and it opens up pretty quickly. Now, in terms of the trunk, there's not too much to report back here. In typical minivan fashion, you have this large tub where these seats will actually fold into. So you pull on this lever, then you simply pull on this lever, and then sliding this seat back, the seat will fall into place. Now, I will say it's more of a two-handed operation. I think the Kia Carnival was a little bit easier to stow the third row seats, but it is nice once the third row is folded. You've got plenty of space located behind the third row, and it's kind of cool how it folds into place. Now, behind the third row, you're looking at 32.3 cubic feet of space. Behind the second row, you're looking at 87.5 cubic feet of space. And then if you fold down the second row, behind the first row, you got a whopping 140.5 cubic feet of space. So this is pretty much higher than any other three-row crossover, aside from maybe like the Hummer EV, which was a massive amount of space on the inside, but it's just gigantic. Now, there's nothing else to really report back here aside from a cigarette-style power outlet located in the third row, along with the button to close your liftgate instead of actually on the liftgate itself, which is a little bit different. And then you've got this slot over here for your charging cable, and your 12-volt battery is located underneath this compartment over here. But other than that, it's a very spacious interior like most minivans. All right, next up, let's talk about pricing, and you're definitely paying a premium because of the plug-in hybrid powertrain. The Select trim level starts at $50,960, and the top-of-the-line Pinnacle tops out at $59,690. This one standing behind me with the Select and the S Appearance package with the Custom Preferred package and the Uconnect Theater Group tops out at $64,250. So it's definitely not affordable, but it does have a lot to offer, and it's a pretty luxurious interior. Now, if you opt for the non-hybrid version, you're looking to save about $5,000 to $10,000 depending on the trim level, and at that point it's a little bit more comparable to like the Toyota Sienna, Honda Odyssey, and the Kia Carnival. Now, in terms of safety features, the base Chrysler Pacifica comes with lots of features as standard. We're talking adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, you've got lane keep assist and lane departure warning, emergency braking, cross traffic alert. Now, one thing I will mention about the adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist is this thing will nudge you back into the middle of the lane, but it won't keep you centered in the lane like some of the other competitors I've reviewed. I don't believe Chrysler is offering that technology on the Pacifica at this point, which is a little unfortunate because the Kia Carnival did have active lane centering. Now, like I mentioned, this one has the Custom Preferred package for $6,000, which includes the 360 camera on the inside. You also got front and rear parking sensors, and you have self-park features as well. So you can hit a button on the dash and this vehicle will find a parking spot and park itself. Now, in terms of crash test ratings, it's actually pretty good. We're talking 5-star crash test rating from the NHTSA. Now, for those of you that might be worried about reliability, let's talk about the warranty here. You get a 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper limited warranty, a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty, and the hybrid system and the battery is warranted for up to 8 years and 100,000 miles. All right, next up, let's see how this vehicle drives with that plug-in hybrid powertrain. So, turning this vehicle on, in typical hybrid fashion, you don't really hear the engine turning on because it's running off of the electric battery. Now, turning this into drive, you'll notice that gas engine will kick in if your battery is depleted. In my case, my battery is pretty much depleted. I'm at 1%, and so probably 30 seconds into this drive, I imagine that gas engine will kick on. We'll talk a little bit more on that when we get onto the freeway. Now, setting off onto the road here, you guys may be wondering, how does this thing feel? So here I'm accelerating. I heard the gas engine kick on. It's not very loud by any means. And like I mentioned earlier, this thing is pretty peppy. It doesn't feel underpowered. Now, it's really unconventional to have such a large gas engine for a plug-in hybrid. Typically, it's reserved to a smaller 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, like what you find in the Jeep Wrangler 4xe I reviewed around December. Also, in terms of how this thing feels when you're driving, it feels just like any other hybrid you've driven. It doesn't really feel like an electric car, aside from that additional boost you get off the line. You know, I would say 0 to 30, this thing is just as quick as something that's like a 5-liter V8. It's very, very quick 0 to 30. Now, 0 to 60 is a little bit of a different story. It's not meant for that. But if you're trying to merge onto the freeway or, you know, go around somebody, there's plenty of power in this vehicle to do that, even though that 3.6-liter V6 isn't directly connected to the wheels themselves. In terms of ride quality here, I would say it's about average. It's a pretty comfortable minivan. I can't say it's the softest vehicle I've driven, but you know, driving over speed bumps and stuff like that, this is plenty comfortable. There's really no problems with it. We're actually about to drive over some train tracks, so you guys can kind of see what it feels like on the inside. So you definitely notice that you're driving over train tracks, but it's not jarring on the inside. I also think if this vehicle is fully loaded with, you know, 7 individuals, the suspension might ride a little bit softer because you have a little bit more weight on the inside. Now, in terms of road noise, I would say it's really quiet when you're driving below 40 miles per hour. but when you're hitting the freeway, it gets a little bit louder. Again, it's just average. There's no fooling anybody that this is a luxury vehicle, but it does everything really well. It's got plenty of space on the inside, and at the same time, it doesn't feel like a large three-row crossover. This feels more nimble because it's a little bit lower to the ground. It's got lower ground clearance. The entry and exit height is a little bit lower. This handles more like a large sedan than it does a three-row SUV. And so when you're maneuvering tight parking spots, it's very easy to do because the turning radius is pretty tight on this car. I wish the 360 camera came up a little bit quicker, but other than that, there's really no complaint with the maneuverability inside the Pacifica. Now, I'll also mention this vehicle does come with regen braking, so it will send power back into the battery when you're braking at a stoplight. That said, this isn't like a regen braking from an electric vehicle. You don't actually feel any resistance. This feels just like a typical gas-powered vehicle, but you can pull up on the screen to see exactly how much energy is going back. It'll show up as negative kilowatts when you're under hard braking, and you can get upwards of 50, 60 kilowatts at any point in time going back into the battery under some hard braking. Now, for those of you wondering how this vehicle accelerates, here we are about to get onto the freeway. So let me show you about a 25 mile to 70 acceleration. So down on the floor. And we're at 70. So honestly, not bad at all. That was going uphill, and this vehicle really isn't meant for like a 0 to 60 type of acceleration, but it's plenty quick. Now, because it has that eCVT transmission, you don't actually feel the gears changing. It's just like a linear acceleration, and it doesn't feel bad at all. I mean, this is a perfectly fine daily driver. Now, some of you may be wondering, what does it feel like when the electric battery dies? Do you feel a little bit more sluggish, or, you know, what's that transition? Well, first off, there's no noticeable difference when the electric battery dies. It feels almost identical as to when the electric battery is fully charged. And the reason that happens is because there's always a little bit of charge left inside of the battery, even when it shows you there's less than 1%. Also, the engine is attached to the electric motor, so even when the engine is on, it's not actually directly sending power to the wheels. It's still going through that electric motor, and so even when it's off or when it's on, there's really not a major difference. The last thing I'll mention is, even if you have a fully charged battery, when you're doing some hard acceleration, the gas engine will kick on anyways. So once that battery dies, you don't really notice any sluggishness because the gas engine is just always working. And you can't really tell when this thing turns on the gas engine. I mean, it's pretty smooth. You may be able to hear like a little clicking sound, but other than that, it's a very smooth transmission between the two powertrains. One minor gripe that I have is the Wrangler 4xe had a button located near the headlight controls where you can turn on all electric power, hybrid mode, or battery conserve mode. So there are different type of drive modes that you can use to be able to best customize how you want the power delivery. You don't have that in the Pacifica. It's always going to decide on its own whether to kick on the gas engine or just keep it electric or do both. The software is the deciding factor here, unlike the Wrangler 4xe, where you have a little bit more control into whether it's using the electric battery or not. It's a very small difference, but I will say I drove this vehicle on all electric mode yesterday, and I did that by mostly just being a little bit lighter on the pedal. I didn't hammer it down, and it stayed in electric mode as long as the charge was there. Alrighty, to finish off this video, what are my overall thoughts on the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid? Well, there are some sacrifices you're going to have to make, like the fact that you can't get all-wheel drive on the plug-in hybrid version. You don't have the stow-and-go system that you have on the non-hybrid versions, and you're going to have to pay a premium for this thing. It's pretty expensive. That being said, this is the ultimate family road trip vehicle. I mean, it does a lot of things well. For one, you can get over 500 miles on a single fill-up. You also can drive to your soccer practice, to your kids' school, pick them up without ever having to use an ounce of gasoline, which will lead to savings down the road. Also, this thing is very comfortable on the inside, has great technology. This is an awesome vehicle to have to pretty much do everything you want. You can even fold down that third row and probably fit some pretty large pieces of plywood or 2x4s or whatever you might be hauling and fixing up at your house. This is the do-it-all vehicle, and I think it's a great option for a lot of individuals. Now, when you compare it to some of the competition, personally, I like the look of the Kia Carnival inside and out a little bit more, but the Kia Carnival does not come with a hybrid, and it doesn't offer all-wheel drive on any trim level, so there are some advantages to the Pacifica. Also, this looks a little bit more conventional than something like the Toyota Sienna, which looks a little bit more out there and different and outlandish. But what are your thoughts on the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid? Would you take this over the competition, and why? Let me know down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly videos. Also check me out on all the social media at Schwazy_. Until next time, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.